Fox News Channel will continue its coverage. Again, labor riots in France. Jamie Colby has the anchor duties in New York. She will take them up in a moment. You're watching Fox News Channel worldwide. Riots in Paris.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Jamie Colby. You are looking at live video as tear gas is fired in central Paris. Place de Nation is where this is located. These are riots of students. And today, joining these students, unions and employees against a measure, a new jobs contract measure that would increase employment for youth, but may, they argue, take away some of the classic protections of those underage who work. Again, this is inside central Paris. The riots have turned violent today. Cops trying to get control. A lot of smoke right now from tear gas that is fired. Cars have been torched as well. This riot is huge, one of 160 marches that are planned nationwide against the measure that President Jacques Chirac has said he stands behind, though he has called for immediate negotiations of all of those involved. But the students upset today enough to come out to the streets inside central Paris. Also, we are going to go right now to the phone. We have a radio reporter. Hugh Schofield is going to give us more from the scene. Hugh, when did this start and how violent has it turned?
Well, what I know is that the march came to an end about an hour or so ago. And it seems that at the end of the march, this is the most volatile time. As most people were dispersing, there were elements, as we've seen in previous demonstrations, who wanted to take on the police, who've formed into gangs, started taunting the police and throwing bottles and so on, and the police, as usual, responding with a certain degree of muscle, tear gas and so on. And it's a very ritualistic encounter, but we'll just have to see how serious it gets. It may be contained, it may not.
You know, Hugh, we're watching this video, and I know you're not exactly where we are looking at this video, but right now we're seeing a woman with a group of officers. She is arguing with these officers. They have helmets on. They have riot gear on. Obviously, they are taking this seriously. The students as well refusing to leave the area, feeling strongly enough that this is the way they're going about changing the minds of those who want to pass this measure. It isn't up for review until April. Why do they think this is an effective way to get this done, and is it working?
Well, I mean, in my view, the people who are causing the violence are a minority and a pretty vocal and noisy minority, but I would hesitate to say they represent the vast body of the protesters. I mean, what we've seen constantly in the last couple of weeks of growing tension over this is that there are people, fringe elements, who are willing to use these demonstrations to cause violence. They're on the political fringes, they're on the far left, and maybe on the far right as well. And they're not particularly, I don't think, concerned about the nitty-gritty of the demands of the vast majority of the people, of the protesters. So I personally think we should try and separate out the vast majority of the protesters from these elements who tag on and use it as a chance to reach their rather more anarchistic points of view.
Okay, Hugh Schofield in Paris. Stand by with me for a second. I want to get Fox Business contributor Meredith Whitney in here, because Meredith, when I started to read about this measure today, there is about a 23% unemployment rate among people that are 18 to 25 that want to work. So why are they so angry about the measure?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, several years ago when France and so many of those other European nations converted to the euro, it became much more expensive for denizens of Europe, actually, because their currency was effectively rounded up. So imagine if you're paying 60 cents for an apple and all of a sudden it's $1. I mean, that was the equivalent effect of what happened here. And then increasingly, France has an enormous immigration problem that a lot was seen of over the summer with the burnings in the suburbs. So there's a lot of competition for jobs, and then if people want to work, not getting those jobs and then having much less desirable conditions through which, once you can get a job, is so much scarier. And I think people react in violence when they're scared, and it's clear that these guys are really scared.
And speaking of violence, Meredith, hang on for 1 second, because we've just seen these police officers line up and charge a group. We saw a cameraman get assaulted by somebody in the crowd, and as they are moving in, we can hear a lot of shouting, very, very angry crowds inside central Paris today, part of these marches and demonstrations that are planned against this measure. Hugh, let me bring you back in here.
Yeah.
What are you hearing in terms of what the police plan of action is to try to get this under control?
They're pretty accustomed to this. You know, this is not as rare or as well, it looks dramatic, but I mean they're well capable of dealing with this kind of thing. Remember, we just referred to the riots in last November. They dealt with 3 or 4 weeks of nightly violence without causing a single serious injury or let alone a death among those rioters, which I can assure you are far more serious and long-lasting than what's happening here tonight. So the police know that they have their tactics sorted out. There'll be a certain degree of force, certain degree of muscle, possibly some of it not very pleasant to look at. But I suspect they'll handle it and have it under control before too long.
Well, right now they seem to be backing away from the group. You know, a lot of the people in the crowds are throwing things at these police officers. They have their shields up. They have their helmet and riot gear on. They've been throwing tear gas into the crowd. So how long do you think these students, union members, and employees plan to stay? Have they announced what their plans are to make their point?
Well, I mean, this what's happening now will go on, no doubt, for a couple more hours, and I'm sure it'll look pretty nasty. After that, everyone's going to have to take a step back and decide what the next step is. The unions and the students are calling today a great success. I mean, let's not forget that the unions, the students, the organisers, will condemn this violence on the part of a handful of rioters. They have nothing to do with it. They will be focusing on the bigger issue, which for them is the fact that 1 million or more people took to the streets today and peacefully protested against these new government measures. They'll be calling it a big success and demanding that the Prime Minister and the President Chirac withdraw this new youth jobs contract. The government will be assessing whether or not today has been such a huge success, whether it's 1 million or 500,000, and whether they can bank on the silent majority to see them through in this. And it'll be in the next couple of days where we start getting the political feelers put out again to see whether the government's prepared to water down, compromise in some way, and then we'll just have to see. But it's probably possible that we'll be seeing more marches next week.
Hugh, as we continue to watch these riots, this incredible live video that we're getting in from France of these riots over this measure, I wanted to ask Meredith Whitney, our Fox Business contributor, who's been kind enough to stay with us. Meredith, what is this new jobs contract all about?
Well, it essentially just makes hiring and firing much easier, and so it gives employers much more flexibility to be competitive on global markets. What these students are protesting against is really upward mobility and opportunity. They can't get that if they don't allow their businesses, the businesses that operate in France, to be more competitive and more flexible. So effectively, these riots are self-defeating, because if the economy of France isn't growing, there will not be opportunities for these students, and there will not be opportunities for these students to extend beyond the class culture that they have, right? Class culture is stuck in the mud if your economy is not growing. They have to let these businesses be more flexible and be more competitive on the global landscape, because the world is passing them by.
Historically, though, Meredith, is there room for negotiation here if the Prime Minister and the President are steadfast on this particular measure as it is? They're calling for negotiations, but are they willing to compromise?
I don't think that time is on their side in terms of compromise. I mean, look, you're still dealing with basically a socialist system. So, that my gut is that there'll be some level of compromise which will be uncompetitive for the need, what you really need to see here. So this will go slowly. For Dominic de Villepin to do this, actually, it's an incredibly progressive measure, and you just hope that the rest of the government is behind him. But time again is not on their side, and they need to be. I'm very impressed actually that they took this measure, and Germany's taking taking measures like this to be more competitive. And what they really could benefit from is the support of the support of the people. And Europeans always pride themselves upon having a much more global outlook than Americans do. And in fact, this is quite, this is showing the fact that they don't have quite as global of an outlook as they profess to so often.
Well, let's talk about equally impressive is the sheer number of police officers. Take a look at this video. Wherever this camera seems to roam in this area, you can see that there are a fair number of police officers at the ready for whatever these students have in mind. They have taken measures such as firing tear gas. There were cars torched which needed to be brought under control. You can see a number of police vehicles at the lower left-hand side of your screen, as well as these students now somewhat dispersed. As these cops come lined up, the police force, they are taking this very seriously, trying to get it under control at this hour. It has been going on for some time. The students who had planned about 160 marches nationwide conducted this one today inside central Paris at Place des Neigeons. If you know this area, this is where it is taking place. It's the second time in 3 days that the students have gathered, and you can see many of them are standing in place. They are refusing to leave the area despite the fact that the police are doing everything in their power to get them to move out. Take a look at this. You can see these police officers in a tight-knit group. They line up. This is the measure that they use. They line up. Now a second group comes in for reinforcement, and they basically sweep the street trying to get the students out of the area by pushing these students far enough away from the main area where they were protesting. It is the hope of the police officers, I am sure, to get them to leave and go home, calling this protest over. But it may not be the end, because the students and the union workers who are now joining them in the measure have said this will not be the last march. It is not their first. It is not their last. Let me bring in Rod Wheeler on the phone, former D.C. detective. He has been watching this video all day. Let's talk a little bit, Rod, about the police tactics. From what you are seeing, are the cops being effective here?
Yes, they are. They're being as effective as they possibly can be with the reinforcements that they have there now. This has turned from a protest to an actual riot now. And so the police are going to assume a different type of position. They're going to be more of the aggressors. In just a few minutes, as you can see on your screen, you're going to continue to see more police reinforcements come in. The police are pushing the crowd back, because what we want to try to do in a situation like this is to try to contain the crowd. We want to identify the individuals that are the agitators in the crowd and then rush after those individuals and try to arrest them.
Rod, we've been watching this now for some time. If you're just tuning into Fox News Channel, we are bringing you live pictures of a riot that is taking place in central Paris. Students there today, the second of 3 days of planned riots, joined by union leaders and other employees fighting a measure that is planned for review and possible passage in April. It isn't even coming up for a month. But these students are very concerned that if this measure passes, they will not receive the protections they feel they need to work in the workforce. This despite a 23% jobless rate there for people 18 to 25 years old. Meredith, let me bring you back in. Tell me a little bit about what the chances of passage of this measure are.
Well, I don't know with absolute certainty in terms of how this is going to go through. I know with absolute level of importance that it is critical that this go through, because not only does France is at a current disadvantage in terms of you don't see flow of funds into France, because France is currently uncompetitive on the stage of the global markets, and so actually you see outflows of funds. Now that puts the government and the entire country of France at risk. So either it's sort of, get with it or get left behind. That's sort of the situation that they're stuck with. And so I think very much these will be sort of forced down the throats. No, these are, the students are objecting to this. But, the far bigger objection was the lack of acclamation of the immigrants that are doing work that, Europeans say they won't do. I mean, their job's outstanding, but these guys just are picking and choosing which jobs they'll take and which jobs they won't take. And what's more egregious is they are objecting to not only, not being more competitive at a job, but not having 6 weeks of vacation, et cetera, not having 35-hour work weeks.
Yeah, Meredith, let's talk about that. These are students primarily that are protesting, students graduating from universities that they say want to get jobs, yet they're fighting a measure that would make it easier for them to get employment. And I just want to reference this video. It is 8:13 p.m. in Paris right now, and the students who have shown up for these riots, faced with long lines of police officers in riot gear, are standing in place. They are refusing to leave as cops try to get this riot under control, a riot that's brought the throwing of tear gas by police officers. They have torched cars, some of these students. It's a melee, basically, over employment when the measure is designed to make it easier for them to work. So what's really going on, Meredith?
Jamie, you are 100% right. And what's confounding about this situation is these students, there are some excellent universities in France and probably one of the best global business schools in France, and SEAD. And so these students have a picture of what the global landscape looks like, how quick to adapt companies have to be in order to compete on the global landscape, and they're resisting exactly what they're seeing. So it's a question of, do they not feel as if they can compete? Do they feel as if France already is so far behind from a level of global competition? What's interesting is, China this past year, the economy surpassed Italy's. China's economy is poised to surpass the UK by the end of this year. Either you get with the program again, or you're rendered further and further irrelevant on the scale of the global economy.
Well,
and that's going to be very, very costly for these particular students who are protesting.
Meredith, from a competition standpoint, the more people in the workforce, the more competitive. Rod, as you look at these students, we have Rod Wheeler, former DC homicide detective, with us on the phone, actually. Rod, as you look at these pictures of these students, what do you think is going through the mind of the police officers as we see them line up here and charge the crowds and the students barely budging?
Well, the police, as I indicated earlier, they're going to have to get more reinforcement in there. Now, the objective in a situation like this is to try to get the crowd to disband. And the way that you do that is exactly what we see on the screen. If you notice, you see small bands of police officers going into different critical parts of the protest. And what you do, you separate all of these protesters to try to get them all to just disband whatever it is that they're trying to do. Now, the police are firing tear gas into the crowd, but it looks like some of the crowd, the people in the crowd, actually have gas masks on as well. So it was almost like they were anticipating this violent riot as we see it on the screen right now.
Yeah, and we're bringing you another picture. This is another perspective from our Sky TV camera on the ground. You can see some people just walking through the crowd. Others, you can see the police officers. They're going to another location. As you've explained, Rod, what they are doing is they're really at every corner of this particular protest in big numbers. And when you talk about reinforcements, I want to ask you about some of the other resources they could bring in. We haven't seen anything aerially. We haven't seen any horseback police officers. I don't know if that's something they do there, but if you're just joining us, it is 8:16 p.m. in Paris right now, inside central Paris. Riots going on today, violence that turned violent. Students, union workers, and employees coming out to support the withdrawal of a measure that is planned to be passed in April, which would ease some of the restrictions and requirements of labor leaders and employers on people who work in the 18 to 25-year-old group, a group where there's as much as a 23% jobless rate. You have to ask yourself the question, why would students who want jobs when they graduate be protesting an easing of restrictions that would help them get work? Rod, what other resources could be brought in to get these crowds under control?
Well, there's going to be a number of things that we're going to probably see if the police does not get this situation under control soon. One of those things that we're going to see, they may even begin to bring in some police dogs. As we know already, they are firing tear gas to try to disperse the crowd. In addition to that, they may start using the fire department to spray water into the crowd just to get the crowd to disband. Again, the objective here is to get these people separated from each other, and then they aren't quite as aggressive when they're by themselves. So that's what the police objective is. In addition to that, to bring in more manpower, because in a situation like this, the police cannot retreat, and they won't retreat. As we can see on our screen right now, the police actually have the crowd moving back, which is what they're trying to do.
And we are bringing you if you're watching us, two different perspectives of this riot. One from our Sky cameras, our Sky TV cameras on the ground. You're seeing some of these police officers move back and forth, some in the crowd just taking it in, taking in the sights, some continuing to protest despite the fact that police officers there inside central Paris have come out in big numbers with tear gas. And if you've ever been to France, you know this is a no-nonsense police force. They will not put up with this for very long. Meredith, what about the administration there, the passage of this particular measure that these students and union leaders are against? Are they also no-nonsense?
I think, again, the importance of the situation will increasingly put pressure on them to be no nonsense. And the threat of these students to, frankly, as you pointed out, or to sort of take some of your words, are really being so short-sighted and working against themselves in this manner. I think that Villepin certainly has the foresight and the reputation that he will force this through.
So what you're saying basically is that the students are working against themselves potentially, but what do you think is going through the minds right now then of the Prime Minister as he watches this video? This is a major location within Paris. A lot of people around the world watching these pictures. It's not a pretty sight to see police officers have to throw tear gas.
I think he's thinking, ils s'en foutent, you know, they're crazy, you know, they're working against themselves. Again, these students, which are supposed to be France's best and brightest, should know what the global economy looks like. They should know better that you cannot stay still and compete in a global economy that is every day getting tougher to compete. Every day the cost of labor is going down. That's why we have so much deflation in the world, or why we don't have more inflation, because of the deflationary force of labor. Labor is just cheaper. You know, as you build out the global economy to nations like India and China, they'll do the work a lot cheaper. And you look at India, you know, you're getting very highly educated people who are doing jobs a lot cheaper. So for particularly students to be so short-sighted, it's got to be extremely frustrating on the government and on Villepin in particular.
Okay, Fox business contributor Meredith Whitney and former D.C. detective Rod Wheeler joining me to explain this video. Take a look. Live video from inside central Paris. Riots today. Over 3 days of riots planned, as many as 160 nationwide. Students there fighting a new jobs contract, a contract that may be passed in April. They sure want to get the attention of the Prime Minister and President there, both of them saying they support the measure. This has been a Fox News Alert. And another Fox News Alert now, a pirate battle on the high seas today. 2 U.S. naval ships, including this one, coming into fire, exchanging it with a suspected pirate vessel off the coast of Somalia. Sailors were on routine security patrol when they spotted the group. As they approached, the suspect opened fire with rocket-propelled grenades, so Uncle Sam fired back, killing 1, injuring 5. The small ship also caught fire, but 12 others on board were rescued, then arrested. Joining us now on the phone, Jeff Breslau, Public Information Officer for the U.S. Navy Central Command and 5th Fleet. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Tell us the very latest about the people that have been taken into custody. What do you know about them?
Right now, they're still on board the U.S. Navy ships. The injured are being treated by U.S. Navy medical personnel, and the ships were operating as part of a coalition task force under the direction of a Dutch Commodore, Hank Hort. And one of the Dutch ships has a doctor on board that's being sent en route to assist with the wounded.
We were looking at pictures of some weaponry. Were there weapons that were collected from these particular people that were taken into custody?
Yes, they confiscated some weapons, and we'll probably have a little bit better picture of that tomorrow as the investigation continues throughout the night.
What do you think their goal was?
We're not sure about that. Obviously, they fired at 2 U.S. warships that have superior firepower, so I think we'll have to wait till the investigation is complete to figure out what their thinking was.
All right, I want to thank you, Jeff Breslau, for bringing us the very latest. Again, the U.S. Navy having to battle pirate forces off a small boat They have been taken into custody now. We will bring you more as it develops. Video now from last night's arrest of Kenneth Hinson, the convicted sex offender accused now of raping 2 teens in a homemade underground sex prison. We're now less than 2 hours away from him facing a judge. Hinson might have been still in jail today, but a South Carolina judge said prosecutors in the previous conviction that he was facing failed to make a strong case for more serious incarceration or treatment. Former sex crimes prosecutor Greg Skordas joins us now. I hope I pronounced that right, Greg. And Ed Miller is with us as well from America's Most Wanted. Thanks so much. Ed, let me start with you. You had a chance to get some information about this actual dungeon. Did he build it? I understand he was a carpenter.
Yes. Let me give you some inside story stuff that we just learned a few minutes ago that I don't think anybody else knows. This so-called torture chamber or sex prison, whatever you want to call it, had air vents connected to it, but the air vents were sealed. So in other words, the cops are telling me now, just a few minutes ago, that it's a miracle these girls did not suffocate, that they were only perhaps an hour away from suffocating. There was no air left inside that torture chamber. He had sealed those air vents. So if his intent, or if people thought his intent was to come back, we don't think so now. Cops are now saying that those girls, he apparently intended to suffocate those girls because those air vents were sealed. There were air vents, but they were sealed.
How long were they there, Ed?
They were there 7 hours to the best of their knowledge, and the 2 girls, we now know that he apparently took them, he put his hand over their mouths and dragged them to this shed. One of the girls is the daughter of his so-called girlfriend, and the other is her friend. He took them one at a time, awoke them from while they were asleep, and dragged them in there, put duct tape, gaffer's tape around them, and then apparently, according to cops, sexually assaulted them inside this so-called sex prison.
All right, Greg, you know, you have to ask yourself, it's a tragic, horrible story. This particular gentleman, we can't say whether he's guilty or innocent of these crimes, but we know he was convicted previously. What was he doing out on the streets?
Apparently, he had served about half of his 20-year prison sentence. The judge had asked the local district attorney's office to show cause why he shouldn't serve the balance of it, and they didn't do that. The judge apparently then felt that he had been sufficiently rehabilitated, which of course we now know is wrong, and let him out on the street. And of course judges and prosecutors make those decisions all the time. Prisons are full, and once in a while they have horrible consequences when the wrong decision is made. We've
been talking a lot over the last 24 hours in reporting this story, Greg, that in South Carolina this particular judge found that the prosecutor didn't make a strong enough case that Hinson should get any additional treatment. What does it take to prove that?
Apparently in the prison system itself, they do have some treatment, and perhaps he had fooled enough people to conclude that he had been sufficiently helped, that he had gotten some treatment in the prison there, and the judge decided that he really didn't need anything else, and so he paroled him. The man was out on the street and obviously wasn't cured or helped at all.
All right, well, Greg Skordas and Ed Miller from America's Most Wanted, I wish we had more time with you, but Ed, we appreciate the exclusive information you brought us on the case. Thank you both. Still ahead, police give chase to a suspect in California. Before it's done, 3 different drivers are carjacked and 2 people are taken hostage. We'll show you what led to the deadly pursuit. And take another look at this live video. These are pictures. You can see how it has escalated. These riots in Paris, in central Paris. This is actually tape that came in a little while ago. We wanted to show you how violent it has gotten. These students are not backing down. They are fighting a new jobs measure. We will bring you a lot more from France when we come back. Stay with us on Fox News Live. Some things men don't want to talk about.
Like prostate problems. But I learned 1 in 3 men will have them. So I switched to One-A-Day Men's.
A complete multivitamin plus lycopene, which Harvard study suggests may help prostate health.
Some things aren't healthy to talk about.
One-A-Day Men's.
At Stouffer's, our lasagna is America's favorite for what we put in it. And now even more appreciated for what we don't. See what's cooking at Stouffer's.
When it comes to healthcare, disease is our common enemy.
My father has Alzheimer's. Will I develop it too? Are there new drugs to fight cancer?
Could my hypertension lead to heart disease? For answers, ask your doctor or visit these websites. Researchers at America's pharmaceutical companies are working on hundreds of new medicines to fight disease, partnering with healthcare providers to better inform patients about treatment options. Go online and learn, because knowledge is the best medicine of all.
Hi, Richard Tallheimer here with reason number 2, Ionic Breeze is the most popular air purifier in America. It changes people's lives. I get hundreds of letters from our millions of satisfied customers telling me how much better they feel with an Ionic Breeze. And you can try this for yourself in your own home. Call me today. I'll pay the shipping. You see if you sleep better and feel better. And if not, call me for a complete refund. I'll even pay the shipping back. But I promise you'll be amazed to see what collects on those stainless steel grids. So call me today and give yourself and your family cleaner, healthier air.
We all deserve to breathe fresh, clean air, especially in our homes. With the Sharper Image Clean Air Now campaign, you can. For the very first time, America's most trusted brand of air purifier is offering an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. The Ionic Breeze charges incoming air, so pollen, dust, dander, and other irritants attach to the collection grid. Then air passes through the new Ozone Guard grill coated with Premier Catalyst coating, recognized by the EPA as a newer way to reduce air pollution because it helps convert smog and ozone into pure oxygen. You have to move air to clean it, and the Ionic Breeze cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, silently. Order today and we'll give you a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze to keep small rooms fresher 24 hours a day. We'll even pay your shipping so you can use the Ionic Breeze risk-free for 2 months. If you decide to send it back for any reason, we'll pay that shipping too and keep the bathroom Ionic Breeze as our gift. But that's not all. For the first time ever, call right now to find out how you can get an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. That's right, it is amazing. A free Ionic Breeze Quadra.
Call 1-800-910-8992. That's 1-800-910-8992.
Alert now, this is new video that's come into Fox News Channel on these riots we've been telling you about inside central Paris. Students, union leaders, and employees getting together today to fight a measure that is expected to pass in April that would ease the restrictions of employers for the 18 to 25-year-old crowd. Students, the very students who are graduating who want jobs, they are fighting the measure that would bring more jobs because they say that that measure, in their opinion, won't give them all of the protection they need on the job. Cops lining up, trying to push the crowds back, trying to disperse them using tear gas. There were flames in cars torched earlier. Again, this is new video out of Paris. It is an 8 p.m. hour there, late night, and the students showing no signs of leaving, although they have been pushed back significantly by the police officers as the police contemplate there what additional resources they will need to actually call these riots off and get them under control. You can see some of the smoke from some of the tear gas. Here is a live picture now as you see some of the police vehicles touring through the area. In this particular area, it looks like they have been successful to get some of these students to leave the area. Again, this is the second of 3 days of riots that have taken place. You can just tell from these pictures the manpower that has come out in this area inside Paris to try to get these riots under control. The students throwing things at the police officers, torching cars. We have Sky's James Matthews on the scene to bring us the very latest as we look at these live pictures. James, what is the scene right now?
The scene right now is quiet relatively compared to what it was a couple of hours ago. Scenes of intense rioting, bricks, bottles, Molotov cocktails being thrown by youngsters at lines of French riot police. What they've done is move into the central area where this all took place, the Place de la Nation, and try to force the rioters to disperse. Hundreds of French CRS, the riot police, and what they've done latterly has been formed into small snatch squads, picking out individuals and arresting them, taking them off. Many rioters have dispersed, but it has been an ugly couple of hours here in one of Paris's most celebrated and beautiful square.
Yeah, we have seen, James, from some of these pictures, and we can see a pretty significant police presence behind you. We appreciate you staying in that area, which must have been a little bit dangerous with everything that was being thrown at the officers. At this hour, how many students do they estimate actually showed up for this riot, and how many police officers did it take to try to get it under control?
Well, the riot evolved from a demonstration, a very peaceful demonstration. Tens of thousands of people turned up for innocent political protest. What happened is that you got a few hundred who jumped in on the coattails, and they were the troublemakers. They started a riot away from the main demonstration, the main crowd, and that's where the trouble flared. They confronted the police, and while the innocents, the people who turned up for political protest, while they dispersed from the area, the rioters were led. And it was a battle between rioters and riot police, several hundred riot police. And as you can see, that situation continues now. It has been very intense here on the south side of Paris.
Yeah, James Matthews, our Sky News reporter on the scene, with the very latest as we look at this new video of these riots still not under control. It is about 8:34 p.m. in Paris. We will bring you the latest as it develops. James, thanks for being with us. This has been a Fox News Alert. We're getting word today of a new British plan designed to end the nuclear showdown with Iran. Part of the deal calls for the U.S. to take part in new talks with Tehran outside the Security Council. While this diplomatic back and forth goes on, Fox polls just out show a growing number of Americans think military action against Iran is likely, 57% to be exact. That's up nearly 14 points from July of 2003. Joining me now to take a look at this and some of other thoughts of Americans as they watch this Iran standoff. Democratic strategist Debbie Dingell is with us, and Ron Kaufman joins me as well. He's a Republican strategist and former White House political director. Welcome to both of you.
Good to be here, Jimmy.
Debbie, let me start with you. America seems from that poll pretty convinced that we'll have to take military action. Do you think there's still time for diplomacy?
Oh, there's got to be more than time. We've got to pray that there is. You can't take force off the table, but we have to do this in a very multilateral cooperation, working with other countries. I'm just learning, as you are, of this latest proposal by the British, but we have to be working with the United Nations Security Council. We have to be pursuing every diplomatic means there is before one would ever think about the use of military force.
Let's take a look at another one of these polls, if we can, Ron. Iran's attempts to gain nuclear weapons will be, according to those polled by Fox News, stopped. 48% believe that they will be stopped. This British proposal, perhaps one way to deal with the situation. Military action, though, 26%. So do you think the people who believe military action is what it's going to take will support military action, particularly when we continue to see out of Iraq not as many positive stories as we are being told are happening there, but America's perception, perhaps influenced by the media, as Iraq and the conflict not that beneficial, and perhaps swaying their opinion in Iran?
Well, certainly Iran is a situation where we have to win, and they cannot get nuclear weapons. They have a president, Jamie, who has said that he's dedicated to destroying Israel and destroying our culture as we know it. So there's not an option here. We have to prevent it, and we will. I agree with Deb. We have to spend a lot of time with the UN, with our allies, what the Brits are doing today, hopefully, to make sure we exhaust every single option before we have to go to force. But in the end, this battlefield and the war of terror has to be won, just like it has to be won in Iraq.
Perhaps, Debbie, because of the concern of people about actual ground troops as we watch the situation in Iraq, this poll, if diplomacy fails military action to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, more people, 54% in fact, would support airstrikes, not ground troops. Airstrikes and ground troops, only 42%. What do you think the impact is of the current situation in Iraq on the support of Americans for military action in Iran?
I think this is a very complicated situation. I think the American people want to see peace. But they're also worried about the amount of money that's being spent, the amount of troops that are being committed to the Mideast. How are we going to get there? Can the United States keep ourselves, our own homeland? secure and safe against terrorism, is there a limit on the number of things that we can do? So I think you're correct, Jamie, in speculating that that's one of the issues. Again, a poll is a snapshot in time. There are a lot of things that are going to happen before the United States even gets to serious consideration of that as an option, and how the American people feel about that at the time is going to depend upon what the real situation is.
All right, and we'll keep an eye on it. Debbie Dingell, Ron Kaufman, thanks for weighing in.
Glad to be here.
Thank you, Jamie.
A Fox News alert with brand new video you are seeing now. These police officers in central Paris, no-nonsense approach to these student rioters. They initially started with a peaceful protest and soon got out of control. Here you can see the police have one of the marchers there down. They are making arrests. They are moving and dispersing these crowds as quickly as they can. Again, new video into Fox News from these protests in Paris. The Prime Minister and President Jacques Chirac, they are saying they support this measure regarding the work conditions and a new jobs contract bill for those 18 to 25-year-olds. Now we have brought you that new video, and we will have a lot more on the protests in Paris. They aren't stopping. Cars burning, students throwing things at the police officers, reinforcements being called in full riot gear. These cops are getting this under control, but it's still going on, and we'll be following it for you. Again, this is a live picture. Now take a look at the amount of police presence. It is 8:39 p.m. in Paris, and these police officers likely working overtime today, perhaps even being called into work. A very serious situation inside central Paris. We'll have a lot more for you when we return. Stay with us.
We had a big house.
I wish we had an affordable house. Find your perfect place. It's easy with RE/MAX. Nobody sells more real estate than RE/MAX.
Get ready for something this refreshing. Introducing Listerine Pocket Mist, the refreshing way to kill 99% of bad breath germs. New Listerine Pocket Mist. Kill the germs, feel the fresh.
This is Paul. He backtests moving averages differently than Raj, who drags and drops nothing like Anne, who trades options a lot more often than Hal, who places conditional orders differently than George, who celebrates in his own special way. And thanks to Fidelity Active Trader Services, they all get power, price, service, no compromises. Go! Trading with Fidelity. Smart move.
If you have Medicare, you're well aware of the new prescription plans. Still, at CVS Pharmacy, we know how hard it can be to figure out which plan is right for you. But don't worry. We accept all these plans, including the AARP Medicare RX plan and Humana, with the same low prices as any other pharmacy. And our pharmacists are always ready to take the time to help you determine which plan is right for you. Come in and talk to us. We'll help you find out which prescription plan is right for you.
Hey, you feel like going out?
I'm bloated, irregular. Probably stressed from exams. I like how it makes us eat. So how come you're okay? I eat Activia every day.
Introducing smooth, delicious Dannon Activia. With the natural culture Bifidus regularis, it's clinically proven to help naturally regulate your digestive system in 2 weeks.
It's good. I feel great.
Help naturally regulate your digestive system in 2 weeks.
Let's get out of here.
Think you're getting the whole story on Iraq? Well, you may want to think again. We're going to talk to a congressman just back from Iraq and get his take on what's really happening over there and the situation facing our troops. Also, progress is being made.
Now that Yellow Book is coast to coast, we thought about branching out. Yellow Book Cola looked very good. Fly Yellow Book Air. Fast food. Tasty. Wow, theme parks. The Yellow Book brand would be cool on lots of great stuff. The possibilities are endless. Coffee houses, skateboards. Why not Yellow Book toothpaste? Maybe we should stick to what we do best. Great directories. Yellowbook.com and Yellow Book, not the other book, 1-800-YB-YELLOW.
A moment like this, some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this. Some people stop forever for that one special kiss.
the vacation of your dreams. Call your travel agent or 1-800-SANDALS.
This is a Fox News alert with the very latest video coming in, and if it looks a little smoky, it is. The police officers in central Paris have had to use tear gas to try to disperse crowds of students that are fighting a measure that wasn't even scheduled to pass until April. They've scheduled several days of riots there. As you look at this video, police officers are charging these crowds, trying to get them to move back. It's dark as well. It's 8:43 right now, 8:43 p.m. there in Paris, as the cops try to get it under control. I want to bring in Eric Pape. He is with Newsweek. He has just been at the scene. Eric, is it getting any better? Are the crowds beginning to disperse?
I think given the size of the crowd, it's going to take quite a while before they completely disperse. It seemed earlier today like it was going to be a recipe for some trouble tonight. There were several 100,000 people on the streets of Paris, all marching towards the Place de la Nation, which is a giant circular space, very open, a great place for a large number of people to meet. And down one of the big avenues next to it, there were several dozen police vans, which I assume were there for arrests that they were expecting.
The police presence in the video has been absolutely huge. I imagine every police officer there has been called in to assist because these crowds have not backed off at all. I saw in some of the video that we had some people down, some arrests being made. Do you have any numbers on any injuries or arrests?
The last numbers that I saw were that more than a dozen people had been injured, including 4 police officers and police support people. I'm sure that's gone up since those numbers came in, though.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous situation. Eric Pape is in Paris for us. He's with Newsweek. We thank you so much for the latest. A beautiful square in Paris under attack today as students flood in high numbers to fight a measure regarding jobs that they are likely looking for when they graduate. We'll bring much more to you on this as we bring you the latest video. We've all heard the reports and we've seen plenty of pictures of death and destruction in Iraq. But what many of us aren't hearing enough about are the very real positive stories that are going on inside that country. Stories of folks getting running water and sewage systems, many for the first time, children doing what children do best, playing, infrastructure being rebuilt, and our troops, U.S. troops, making great strides with the Iraqi people. Joining me now, Georgia Congressman and member of the House Rules Committee, Phil Gingrey. Congressman Gingrey recently traveled to Iraq and saw the efforts of our troops firsthand. And I have to tell you, Congressman, I spent this week with troops that had returned from deployment at Fort Rucker, and they had so many stories of success, so many stories of the Iraqi people there and Iraqi troops happy to have us helping. What did you see when you were there?
Jamie, your description of it is really perfect. We went over, it was a Georgia delegation, our 2 United States Senators, Congressman John Linder and myself, our Adjutant General of the Army National Guard in Georgia, General David Poitras. We spent a full day on Saturday with the 48th Brigade Combat Team. They're located at Talil and Balad Air Force Bases, one south and one north of Baghdad.
Congressman, I don't mean to interrupt, but these are your pictures from your trip. I just want people to know that you've shared these with us. Please tell us what we're seeing.
Jamie, thank you for that coverage of those pictures. Yes, and what I'm not looking at the video right now, but what we saw at both locations was just as you described. There was a medical clinic. They were treating Iraqi children, a couple of brother and sister who had severely burned, and they probably would have died had it not been for that free medical care that the 48th Brigade Combat Team provided for them and their medical company, Charlie Company, of the 148th Battalion. They're building schools. They're digging wells. They're getting fresh water to people who've never had potable water. So it's a lot of humanitarian efforts right now, as you described. When the 48th first arrived in theater 7 months ago, they were south of Baghdad and took some heavy casualties. 26 soldiers actually killed, one from my district, the 11th of Georgia. What a sacrifice these soldiers are making, men and women, young men and women. We were glad to have an opportunity to dine with them, take pictures, send some pictures back home to their families, and their will is really strong. Obviously, they're looking forward to coming home in June. but they're paying the kind of price.
If I could, as we're looking at this video, I just want to share with you one experience that I had as well, because I was with the Combat Aviation Training Facility, at the Combat Aviation Training Facility, and Brigadier General Sinclair. And he shared with me, as we watched Apache pilots and Black Hawk pilots train and set new doctrine. We are learning so much as we go over there and bring it back and update doctrine so we can go there and even do it better. They told me that the Iraqi troops are truly becoming prepared to handle this situation on their own. Did you find that as well?
No question, and as we've read about Operation Swarmer in the Samarra region, that's where the Golden Mosque was blown up by Sunnis, and there's this fear, and still, I mean, there's a legitimate concern of slipping into civil war. But now we have the Council of Representatives, just like our House of Representatives, within the next few weeks, I think, they're going to pick a permanent president and vice presidents, and their ministers of defense, of interior, just like our Department of Defense. So this being the 3rd anniversary of Operation Iraqi for Freedom, Jamie, we're seeing tremendous progress. 3 elections last year in 2005, rebuilding of infrastructure.
Certainly something to tell people about. Good to hear some of the good news, and thanks for sharing your trip, Congressman Gingrey. We really appreciate it.
Jamie, thank you. Glad to be with you, Jamie, anytime. You too.
Thank you. All right, when we come back, we're going to have a lot more on these riots in central Paris. You're looking at the latest video to come in, and as you can see, police officers are still working to get this under control. The very latest on the situation there when we get back.
This program is brought to you by the Lincoln Financial Group, providing powerful retirement income security resources to help you say, hello, future.
There is a difference between a vacation and an adventure. One is all hammocks and room service. The other, a life-changing experience. That's what retirement is. A time to leave the hammock swinging and say, hello, future. Learn how to manage your retirement income at LFG.com.
Ooh, you okay? It's this arthritis pain. Arthritis pain? Try my Aleve.
People with arthritis are sharing their good news.
Oh, honey, you've got to try this Aleve.
Good news about the strength and safety of Aleve.
Try my Aleve, Mom. It's amazing.
Only Aleve has the strength to stop arthritis pain all day with just 2 pills. That would take 8 Tylenol. Aleve, that's good news you'll want to share. To share your good news about Aleve, go to AleveGoodNews.com.
A cold front collides with warm air over Dallas. A burst of plasma from the sun hits New York. Arid air and a severe drought whip into Sydney.
The damage is going to be tremendous.
The Discovery Channel and leading scientists will show that when the conditions are right, it will all go wrong. Perfect Disaster premieres tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Discovery Channel.
If you're watching TV without great sound, you're missing half the excitement. But when you connect your TV to the Bose 321 GS-DVD home entertainment system, your movies, sports, and music come to life in an exciting home theater experience. Forget about complications of conventional 5-speaker systems and all those wires running to the back of your room. With the 321 system, you only see 2 small speakers, while the Hideaway Acoustimass module delivers deep, dramatic lows. Its elegant media center lets you easily enjoy sound that John Budris of Boston Globe magazine says rivals that of more expensive 5-satellite units. Call now to receive a free booklet and informative DVD about this innovative system. When you call, be sure to ask about our convenient payment plan and learn how you can enjoy the 321 system in your home, risk-free for 30 days. So why settle for half the experience when the 321 GS system gives you so much more?
Homeowners, need cash? You need to know about the no closing cost home equity line of credit from Countrywide. Unlike many lenders, with Countrywide there's no application fee, no credit reporting fee, no appraisal fee, no underwriting fee, no closing costs. So you could use more of your loan to pay off credit cards and lower your bills. The no closing cost home equity line of credit from Countrywide. No one can do what Countrywide can. Call now and see if you qualify.
Call 1-800-641-1791.
Fox News Alert. More live pictures coming into Fox News right now. We want to show you the very latest. You can see the police officers still very much on the scene inside Central Paris. Students there rioting today in large numbers. Police having to line up in riot gear and try to get these crowds under control. They've used tear gases as students torched cars. A very large riot in Paris. We're going to have a live report for you in about 2 minutes. This has been a Fox News Alert. All right. We wanted to answer some of the emails that many of you have sent in to us on issues you need to know. In a former life, I was an attorney, an accountant, and a business law professor. On the weekends, we're going to start to answer some of your legal and business questions. We wanted to put all of those careers to good use. All you have to do is email me at jamie@foxnews.com. First of all, though, with Lise Wheel, a Fox News legal contributor who's joined me today, we want to talk about California and Calabasas in particular. They have a new measure that actually is maybe the toughest no smoking measure around. Lise, what do you think?
Absolutely. Well, really, it disallows any smoking at any public place at all, not just the beach, but any public place. Really what they're saying, Jamie, is your right to smoke ends at my nose. In other words, you can smoke all you want in your house or in your car if the windows are rolled up. But once it affects me, you have no right. It's a privilege to smoke.
Don't worry, my folks. They may think I've taken up smoking. I'm actually a non-smoker, and I really appreciate going into public places.
Exactly.
But in your own home, Lise, in your car, if the window's open?
It's not going to happen in your own home because we can't police. As long as smoking is legal, we can't police what people do in their own home. Although there have been some cases where the courts have ruled that parents smoking in front of their children, even in their own home, is potentially child abuse. So there is a possibility of it going that far. But Jamie, I got to tell you, I'm all for this law. I hate being in a restaurant and somebody's sitting right next to me smoking or in a public place.
So it's all about the protection of those exposed to secondhand smoke.
Exactly. Secondhand smoke is just as bad as smoking.
Okay, let's get to some of these questions. This has been great because in the first week of this new segment, Need to Know, we've gotten questions that I think a lot of people would benefit from the information. Don wrote me a note. He says, if a person A borrows money from person B and person B passes away, what happens to the debt of person A? Do the survivors of person B inherit the loan? He's talking about a personal loan on a promissory note, or does he get out of his obligation?
And the messiness of this tells you why never to loan money to friends. But it's true, the heirs really should be able to get the benefit of that loan. It's going to all depend on what that promissory note says. Does it say specifically, in the case of my death, the heirs will inherit, or does it say in the case of my death, does it say anything about that?
And what if it doesn't, if it's absent any language?
Here's the problem. If A is the one who gave the loan, B says, look, I paid it off. There is nothing. There is no debt.
You mean lies?
Well, maybe. Can the heirs prove that there is a remaining debt? One thing they can do is they can look at the dead person's bank account and say, on X day, every month, as per this loan, there was $500 submitted.
Okay.
And add that up. But they've got to figure out and they've got to prove what's left of that loan.
All right, so the lesson on this one, I'll put on my legal hat and say if you're going to loan someone money, make sure that the debt inures, is that what the word was from Contract 101?
From one to the other.
To go to my benefits or heirs. Let's get another one in here. Another great question from Charlene. I own a small home. I have 2 children. What's the best way to pass the house along to them when I die? Right now, she has it titled in all 3 of their names, but she's wondering if there's a better way.
Well, the problem with having it titled in all 3 of their names right now is what she's probably not thinking about is gift tax implications. If she, when she made that title change, if the value of that was more than $11,000, maybe $12,000 this year, there are gift tax implications. So she can't really get around it that way. Here's what I would suggest. If the children are young, which it sounds like they are, they're underage, she can set up a trust for them so that if she dies, it will go to a trustee who will then mete out the portions 50-50.
And she'll benefit from some of the tax implications
Exactly,
there.
because right now with her being 3 titles, she can't sell that house.
All right, well, I want to ask, tomorrow we're going to have some business questions that we're going to tackle with our business contributors. Lise has been a great sport to be our first attorney to come in and talk the legal talk with us. If you have a question and you want to write in, a legal or business question, send it along to jamie@foxnews.com. Thanks so much, Lise, for being with us. We'll have some more of your questions tomorrow on Fox News Live in the 2 p.m. hour, and a lot more on the situation in Paris coming up, live reports, and also the latest video on the riots going on there. Students staging a huge protest as police officers try to get it under control, and they've had to take some measures like tear gas and also in riot gear to try to get it under control. A lot more coming up with Trace Gallagher.